Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. Today I'm going to be showing off a couple of my snakes that are a little less handleable than the rest of mine. And I'm going to show you a little bit of how I work with them in order to make them a little bit more handleable. So stick around. I'm Jack and you're watching Python Addiction. Thanks again for joining today, everyone. I've got with me today, first to show off is Ryuuko. She is a Boa Imperator, or BCI. She is blood, so that is a recessive combination in the Boa Constrictor family. So she is here today as one of the snakes that I'm holding because she can get a little on the I don't want to be held side of things, so to speak. She can get a little bitey at times. But it's the concept, as you can see here, with working with her, that I've been able to help make her trust me a little bit more. And that is kind of what today's video is about, is learning how to work with your snakes, whether it's a boa or a ball python or most snakes that are handleable snakes in most circumstances, to kind of work with them so they can trust you a little bit more. And that's why I kind of brought her out first, because she is one that I have worked with and is almost a doll now. I mean, she is very easy to handle now versus when I first got her. She was a little bit more on that defensive side. And most snakes aren't trying to bite you because they're just mean. Most of them, it's a defensive reaction or it's a food drive response. And this girl is a little on the food driven side. When she smells a mouse around, forget it. She will bite first and ask questions later, type of thing. But as you can see now, I am working with her and using my hands, kind of stair-stepping them a little bit, kind of moving them back and forth, so she gets used to just being handled and everything like that. So this is kind of one of those things that you want to just work at slowly. When you're working with a younger snake, it's going to be easier because you're going to be able to get them used to you a lot sooner, and that will stretch into adulthood for the snake very easy if they're handled a little bit more on a regular basis when they're younger. But it's not always the case. If you're getting an adult snake, if you're rescuing a snake, you might have to work at it a little bit. And I do have one of my older girls that just doesn't like to be held. And I can hold her on occasion for a little while, but eventually she gets to the point to where she just wants to bite me. And it's not anything negative or bad. She just doesn't appreciate being held. And that's okay. That's quite okay. Every snake will have a little bit of their own personality, their own characteristics on how they actually interact with you, and whether or not they like to be held, or if they can even be worked with to begin with. But you want to have patience. When you're working with a snake when they're younger, especially if they're a little bit more on the bitey side, and most younger snakes will be, because they're new to the world. They're tiny little noodles with heads. They don't know any better. Make sure when you're reaching into an enclosure, Try not to have enclosures that are top lid enclosures if you can, because then you're kind of coming down from the top. That kind of can scare them. So try to get front opening enclosures if at all possible. Other things to make sure is if you want, have a hook or something. It can even be something like a straw. And what I normally do with most of my snakes is I'll tap them on the head. With a lot of what I have in the racks for the ball pythons, I can just use my hand very lightly and just give them a tiny little tap, and they know that I'm pulling them out of their enclosure instead of trying to feed them. Same concept with her. While she is still on the smaller side, I can usually get away with using my hand, but if you don't want to risk the chance of getting bit or tagged, as we call it sometimes, you can use something that's a little bit longer, just a very light little tap, just to kind of startle them a little bit. But I am going to switch over to another one of my snakes that's a little bit more defensive. And that's going to be my boy Ruka. So I'll be right back with him. And here we are now with the second snake. This is Ruka. He's a Vietnamese blue beauty. He's about 2.5 years old now. I got him from Snake Discovery, and he is getting absolutely huge. And he's a little bit of a ornery boy. He's one that I have had to work with for pretty much his entire life so far, and he still tries to tag me or get me. Even though he's gotten a lot better, I gotta be slow moving around him, and that's one of the things that I was saying with my boa girl there. You want to be very slow. You want to be kind of work from, if you're trying to get them to not be so head shy and not to bite so much, work from the back underside and then slowly move forward, and you'll be able to eventually get them to see that you're not there to harm them. It's building those little threads of trust, and sometimes that trust takes years to actually do. And like I said, I mean, I've worked with this boy for quite some time, but he will still, on occasion, see, he'll get defensive very quickly. But if I'm cautious and move myself nice and slow, get those tongue flicks, and he knows that I'm not going to hurt him, but he will open up very quickly if I startle him too much. If I move too quickly, he'll get startled and he'll try to tag me. And if he bites at his size still, he's not going to do any damage or any blood drawing for the most part. He might get a little bit. I don't know if you can see it, but he did tag me when I pulled him out of his enclosure. Just very tiny, tiny little pricks as far as that goes, but nothing major. But that's something that I expect. This particular species is a little bit more defensive when it comes to their home or their particular territory in comparison to some other snakes. So it's one of those things that I always expect. I do have him slightly tap trained to help avoid him darting out of his enclosure. With the fact that I've handled him so much, he doesn't musk on me anymore. When I very first got him and was first working with him, he would musk on me all the time. And now he doesn't musk at all, and I don't even get his little tail. I hardly ever get tail rattles from him while I'm holding him. When I first got him, he would rattle that tail. Oh, see? I'm moving too quickly for him. He's like, what are you doing? But he would rattle his little tail and everything because he was nervous. He doesn't do that when I'm handling him almost ever anymore. He knows that I'm not a threat to him. But it's one of those that you have to work, taking your time to build that trust up. And that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys today when it comes to working with animals that might be a little bit more difficult to handle. Is it's about patience, 100%. You're not going to make them or bend these guys to your will overnight. It's going to take working with them and teaching yourself what their limits might be. Working with my girl Wednesday, the big BCI, she does not like to be handled very much, so I don't handle her. I'll look at her, I'll walk over to her enclosure, and I might be able to reach in and pet her on occasion, just a tiny bit, but she will tag me if I am not careful, if I'm not cautious, and that's not because she's mean, she just doesn't like to be handled. And you as a owner of a snake have to understand how to read your snake a little bit and understand what they might be thinking to some degree, and start learning those warning signs. Like him opening up his mouth and everything like that, I'm not worried about because I've worked with him long enough. He's doing his tongue flicks. He's just doing what's in his nature when it comes to how he opens up his mouth like that. When he sees something kind of moving towards him, he's just being very, very cautious. But otherwise, he's not darting around. He's not moving around a lot. And that's what I wanted to show you, is that you can work with your snakes and get them to be handleable, even though in some cases they normally might not be. So, if you liked today's video, please do hit that thumbs up button, as that lets me know that you enjoy this type of stuff. And also, if you haven't done so already and you've made it this far into the video, please do consider subscribing, and while you're down there, clicking that notification icon, as that will let you know when I post new videos. I tend to do new videos at least once a week. So, until next time, I'm Jack, my boy Ruka here. Love you all. You've been watching Python Addiction.